So essentially, it's been a month since LawBot has been online. A lot has changed, and I'm very happy to say that today, all of the basic elements, all of the basic building blocks that we wanted to have for LawBot are live and that they are operational. Right, so just by way of introduction, I'd also like to speak just quickly about the idea of LawBot, right? Where did this come from? And the question essentially we need to answer is, why does the world need LawBot? Does the world need LawBot? And this is obviously a very important question. And we think it does. And the reason for this is essentially that we have a very fundamental problem with access to legal information, access to justice, not only in this country, but in many countries around the world. Now, the idea kind of came up when I was working for the COLS Pro Bono Committee, and we were starting to organize a number of consent workshops in local schools. Right? So you kind of go there and you would explain, this is the law on sex offenses, and this is how you can comply and you can learn about the law here. Now the problem with doing that is it's very difficult for somebody to go to all these individual schools physically and tell them something quite complicated, which people will then tend to forget quickly again because it is complicated. Now, if you put yourself in the position of somebody who's trying to learn about the law online, you simply look it up on Google, you'll find an abundance of websites that have a lot of legal information on them. But you won't necessarily understand it because it is so often written by lawyers and tailored to lawyers, right? So what's missing is some sort of intermediary that can explain this information to you and can turn it into knowledge, something they can use usefully, right? So we think this is what LawBot does. Essentially, we've done it for crime so far, we've done it for the major criminal offenses, that you can go on LawBot, it's available 24/7 from anywhere in the world, and you can ask essentially to be guided through some of the legal requirements for crimes, and in the process learn about what the law is, right? So we think that LawBot functions as exactly this kind of intermediary between the plethora of legal information that is out there and the people who need to access it but don't really know what it means. So this is kind of the idea behind LawBot. And as I said, we've been around for a month, and I should probably also add by way of caveat that there are still a lot of things we're working on. This soft launch is an incredibly important day for us. We've worked very hard to get here. We think going forward, we know what to work on, we know where our problems are, and we know how to solve them. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming. We have a nice program for you, and I'd like to give over to Rebecca Aiolo, who will talk about a little bit more about the story and about our business development. Thanks a lot.
Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Aiolo. I'm Marketing Manager here at LawBot, and I'm here to tell you a bit more about what LawBot is and what we've achieved. So as Ludwig mentioned, we're targeting victims of crime. Our current criminal justice program is targeting social utility by victims of crime. In many instances, people who have had a crime committed against them aren't aware of their legal rights, and as a result, they won't go to the police and report what happened to them. There are many reasons for this, of course. One of them is that law is difficult to understand, shrouded in legalese. In sexual offenses, for instance, nobody knows what a reasonable man is. Questions of consent, particularly, are very difficult and contentious, and that has accumulated in 70 to 85% of sexual offenses being unreported. That is the problem. Our solution is LawBot. It is a completely free, confidential, and secure service for victims to learn about their rights and how the law appeals to them. Free, in that we will never charge end users to use the service. Confidential and secure. We use the highest, most robust encryption, and we do not store the data that users give. So even if we wanted to, we couldn't tell you what you converse with LawBot. What you say to it is between you and LawBot. Something we found very important was to make the bot very user-friendly. You go into the interface, and you have nice bright colors, and it's as interesting and fun as the situation can entail. We also have many services which help the bot help the user. For instance, our LawBot blog posts periodic updates on advice relating to sexual assaults, and just this week for Pro Bono Week, we hosted a series of blog posts discussing how the law relates to transgenders and heteronormativity. Moreover, we have two relatively new functions which are very useful for the user. If, at the end of speaking to the bot, you decide you want to report your crime to the police, LawBot can help you find your nearest police station. Simply enter your postcode and it will give you directions. In addition, you can download a legal summary of what the bot perceives your crime to have been. You can hand this to the police and it will streamline the process of interviewing and give them a more clear view of what's happened to you. Now, we are an entirely student-run venture. Everything you see on the site has been the product of the team in the past 7 or 8 weeks. There are many benefits and a few drawbacks. Mostly the drawbacks are that our degrees are a side project now, our grades slipping, maybe, but the benefits are we are incredibly dynamic and open to feedback. Whenever we get some publicity, if someone finds a bug in the system or has a comment we should change, we can change it within 2 hours. Anything you give to us, we are receptive and are developing the bot every day. You may wonder, is this a novel idea? If it's such a great idea, how aren't there millions of bots out there? Well, we can say that this is definitely the first of its kind in the UK. There are many chatbots out there and many other AI insurgents into technology and law. However, the vast majority of these focus on businesses. IBM Watson's Ross, for instance. It helps businesses sort their legal processes, look at contracts, and it's designed to help big businesses. There is relatively nothing out there to help individuals learn about their rights, learn about the law. So what we are doing is pioneering law and technology to help individuals, not businesses. So, how have we done so far? In the past 4 weeks, 97 different countries, people have viewed the bot. We've had over 6,000 unique users, culminating in over 38,000 bot interactions. My favorite is that we've had 18 people from Russia. How have we reached these users? Well, we started in Cambridge. The first day we launched, we advertised to the Cambridge Law faculty, to Cambridge students as a whole, got their feedback, modified the bot, and then expanded nationally. We featured in different types of media, we targeted social media, and this has culminated in quite a lot of press release. The jewel in our crown is The Guardian, an article which was released on Thursday. Bad timing because of Trump, but still. We're very proud of what we've accomplished, who we've reached, and how much interest we've received. And we really feel that this exemplifies how unique, how interesting, and how useful the bot can be. So, going forwards, our mission for the future are, of course, to increase the user base. We're designed to help victims of crime, so we need to get victims of crime to use us. We're partnering with other universities, trying to get more people to work with the bot, develop crime bots for us, and of course we need to perfect it. In terms of business development, we have a number of partnerships in the pipelines. We intend to reach out to pro bono initiatives, rape crisis centers, to kind of improve what we can offer and get ourselves out there. In addition, we're working on increasing our industry presence. Not to name drop, but we've already had quite a lot of interest from some industry professionals, such as Richard Susskind and Chrissy Lightfoot, which we're very proud of. And in summary, we want to start a legal revolution where technology and law help victims and promote access to justice. Thank you. Let's change the future of justice together. And now, Joseph Noske, Nadia Abdul, who will be telling you about what the law does.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming. As head of legal research, I'm going to walk you through our LawBot's approach to the legal content, legal information that is so central to our purpose. So most of you probably know we use very straightforward decision tree format, and most of the legal bits of LawBot are actually quite straightforward. The one major dilemma we've had was striking the right balance between, on the one hand, providing accurate and accurate information that makes legal sense, and on the other hand, being user-friendly and accessible. So we were looking at providing few questions that users don't really get overwhelmed by, and using day-to-day language, so no legalese. I forgot to change the slide. So that, yeah, that's the line, the spectrum of our dilemma. So the solutions we came up for solving this issue that we're constantly grappling with was the define function and enabling users to tell us when they're not sure about their answer or they don't understand the questions and so on. So how this works in practice is, so the user tells us, I don't know, I'm not sure. And then we seek to give explanations, examples, analogies, anything that will enable them to understand what we need in order to provide an accurate answer to their legal question. Now, this in practice, this will only appear when someone asks, not sure. So the advantage of that is that if you're really sure about what happened, you don't have to go, oh, this did happen, this that happened, did that. Go on. So mostly straightforward and easy to use. One other challenge, I think, for us is approaching questions of evidence. Most of the lawyers here will know that in a criminal trial, these questions will usually be addressed by the jury. But when we do ask these questions, all we have is the user's account, which may or may not be biased. So our general approach to that has been to ask them to get into the other person's head, to give them examples of what would count at, for example, intent, recklessness, negligence, and to use their imagination. Right now we cover criminal law mostly. We're kind of focusing on that for the moment. We do have plans, and we have actually experimented with tort. We've got two great teams working on family law, mainly divorce law, a team working on contract law, so there's exciting stuff ahead. We're also really keen to go into other jurisdictions. Right now we're looking at Germany. We've got a few contacts there. We're very keen to build a German law version of LawBot, which is really exciting. So we've got lots of people interested to help us, which is really nice. And in closing, I'd like to add that we are constantly developing the bot. We're constantly improving it. So if you do use it at some point, you can always send us a message with your feedback, and we'll try to respond to that and change the bot positively. Thank you.
Great. So, yeah, next let's talk a little bit about the technology. It is obviously the fact that we have, we're the only legal chatbot that provides this kind of a service, which is very challenging, obviously, from a technological perspective, because we don't necessarily have that much information on the web to learn about which problems we have to engage with and how we can solve them. So just kind of generally speaking, the way that LawBot works is essentially by an AI/ML script. So this works kind of that there's a basic match between input and output, right? So after a certain question is positive, the user can usually say yes, no, or not sure. And if he says yes, he or she says yes, then the bot will match that with an output that corresponds to that input, right? So that's the basic concept. It's an input-output pattern that matches. So it's kind of like a decision tree model, as Nadia has mentioned, where you start at the beginning with, oh, okay, crime, which of the areas of crime are we looking at, and then you kind of trickle down until you reach a rather refined result. But of course, as you can imagine, one problem with this kind of an approach is that there are probably a million different semantical ways to say yes, and more specifically speaking about the define function that we have, you can say define X, and usually we presume that the person would say define as it is said in the question, when the word actual bodily harm is used, that the user would say define actual bodily harm. But of course, as we all know from our own messaging habits, we don't actually use the words that are presented to us. We make typos, we make mistakes, and we use a lot of different kinds of words. And that is, of course, a problem. especially since we're operating on this input-output sequence. So one way to obviously solve that is to use word stemming, where basically we don't always necessarily ask for the precise word, or we have a high priority exchange essentially, which, for example, if you say définir with a typo of define, and then just harm, LawBot will first run a script on that and correct the typo, and then correct the harm to the corresponding defined match. So that in the end, LawBot corrects your typos for you and understands synonyms as well, right? So there's two kind of main things that LawBot has to correct, typos and synonyms, to then match the correct pattern. Now, the interesting thing kind of with the way the IAML script works is we can use a lot of wildcards. So essentially, we can just say, you know, if anywhere in the input you detect the word theft, then just do this, right? Which we got a little bit ahead of ourselves by simply offering first to users the opportunity to just describe their crime in free prose, which backfired a little bit because we didn't actually have a substantive enough amount of synonyms and a substantive enough amount of word stemming for this. So what we decided to do to solve that problem technologically is to just offer a little bit more of a limited service and to make sure that works perfectly, right? So right now we're still insisting on users saying yes, no, or not sure and define X, although we already have implemented a very large number of synonyms for those words and also for typo corrections. So that's essentially how we try to deal with one of those problems to make it really user-friendly. In the worst case scenario, LawBot just repeats the question and say, oh, was there a typo? You know, I didn't understand what you said, and we'll do that until it receives an input that it understands. Yeah, so it's decision tree model plus X, which is kind of the interesting thing of, I think, AIML, because essentially we can have a decision tree where you can do stuff at certain points of that decision tree. So you can just say, oh, define X, or you can say, oh, go back, right? And we can grow a lot from this technological perspective. So we can add new commands, because we have a command line set up for the interface, right? So we can have it show maps, we can have it show pictures, we can have it give you a downloadable document or something that's sent to your inbox, which we just pushed live this morning. So essentially these are, I think, the main points technologically of LawBot. And of course we have just a very simple, you know, randomized responses, some emotional content, so that at certain points in the decision tree, you will be given, you know, where the answer might be emotionally charged, LawBot will respond to that by saying something kind of nice. Yeah. So essentially that's one point of the technology. Now something, yeah, I should obviously touch on is the question of artificial intelligence, and as many of you probably know, this topic is incredibly hot right now in the legal world. It's really almost deafening to a certain extent. Every single law firm wants to have some sort of machine learning or AI, you know, tool that they can use to, whatever, send billions of dollars around the globe. Now, LawBot does not use machine learning. It doesn't get smarter from interactions. There are a number of chatbots that do that, like the chatbot called Giant, which is built in San Francisco, it leverages machine learning. LawBot doesn't do that. So what LawBot kind of does is it can understand your language, it can understand typos, and it can understand context to a certain extent, right? But it doesn't do this through machine learning, it does it because we teach LawBot that. So one thing we also pushed live this morning, for example, is we found a big, large database online of the most common English names, and now we just kind of hooked it up so LawBot can recognize these are names, the concept of a name, and if the user doesn't say that is their name, then LawBot will say, oh, interesting name, you know, if somebody's trying to have a little joke and, you know, calls themselves something funny. So we have to teach LawBot this stuff. Does it mean it's artificially intelligent? Well, if you think artificial intelligence is only a program that can rationally understand what it's doing and kind of improve its chances at succeeding at a certain goal automatically, then probably not, right? Because it doesn't do that. What it does do, however, can understand some basic language functions. And until the real definition of artificial intelligence emerges, it's a little bit difficult to say whether LawBot is AI or not. Probably colloquially speaking, it seems more like it. From a computer science perspective, since it doesn't have machine learning, probably more not, right? So this is essentially the technological aspect. Yeah, so that's basically the tech of LawBot. We can go into a little bit more detail on questions if you have any questions. And also one thing that I'd just like to mention is that just this morning we really pushed live a lot of updates, so it'd be interesting if maybe you could give us some feedback on that, because we really try to grow a lot from feedback, and it's an incredibly important experience for us, which is also why we have a soft launch and why we put this out there before being ready. because we thought that we could learn a lot from the feedback and from the experience, and I think we have. Yeah. So one more thing, obviously, about liability. Now this is also a very interesting point for us because we are the first of our kind. Why are we the first of our kind? It's a little bit difficult to say. I think there's somewhat of a mismatch between legal people, right, and people who can understand technology, that we can put both together. So that's obviously maybe one reason. Another reason could be liability. We are in touch with the Law Society of England and Wales. We're in touch with the SRA. We're getting professional solicitor advice. So we are thinking about liability because obviously there are some issues there with providing legal advice, reserved legal activities, etc. So this is an issue that's often come up, which is why we wanted to mention it, but we are trying to be as conscientious about it as possible, really. So yeah, that's basically what we have to say about technology, and now I'll hand over to our finance director, Joseph.
Hello, so my name is Joseph Maruszak. Amongst other things, my main role is Chief Finance Director. My contribution is going to be a little bit shorter, yet I think important enough. I'll be talking about three things. First of all, what are our current expenses? Then, why do we think that we need more investments, and why do we think that we need more money? And then I will explain you how we think we can get those resources in order to grow further. So let's talk about our current expenses. Well, first of all, because we are students and because we are financially independent, we are trying to keep our expenses as low as possible. As a result, we were able to build everything which is working right now for around maybe £300, right? However, because we are still growing, we think that we need more money. Now, why we need more money? First of all, with bigger user base and with more sophisticated LawBot and chatbot generally, we need to have more sophisticated and therefore more expensive web design marketing. Generally, more applications that we need to invest into, more sophisticated technology that we need to buy. So for this very reason, we think that progressively, maybe in the near future, it's fairly possible that our yearly expenses will essentially increase 3 times very easily. Then why do we also need more money? We think that the most interesting about the project is that it's very, very easy to expand, right? It's easy to expand to other legal areas in England jurisdiction, and it's also very easy to expand to other countries. Now, with tackling more sophisticated legal problems, as well as finding people in other jurisdictions, like people who know what they're talking about, people who can program, first of all, and people who can manage the teams outside, we are very conscious of the fact that we will probably have to pay them for that. And in the near future, this is something that we will need to do because they'll have to spend more time. Not everyone is that passionate as we are maybe, and because it's becoming a serious time burden for people. So in order to do that, we will need to have more financial resources. And we think it's clearly a very probable thing to do. So as Nadia already said, we've been in touch with people from other universities, and we think that this is the question that we'll have to tackle in the future. Okay, so how we think we can get the money? Well, maybe the most interesting question is how this service, whether we want to monetize this service, and how we want to monetize the service, if we really decide to do it. So, first of all, we are completely clear about the fact that we never want the financial burden to be on the very user, so we never want to make it pay. We never want anyone to pay for us in order to use the chatbot. But then maybe there are other ways how we could get money from the service. We think that the most probable area would be targeted advertising, because the users that are coming to our page are essentially people who are kind of suspicious that they have a legal problem, maybe they have a tortious claim or contractual claim. So already people who are using the website and entering the website, these are people who might be interested in legal profession or in finding legal professionals. And then also people who are told by the LawBot that they need a lawyer. These are exactly the people that we want to target. So it's fairly easy to program the chatbot that at the end of the day, when the final decision of the bot is out and is done, there can be a reference to any law firm which then maybe can pay us for that. Another way how we could monetize the product would be to use the skills and the knowledge we have so far in building the chatbot. Already within 6 weeks, I think that we built a fairly sophisticated chatbot that can work properly. So now we are essentially capable of building any other chatbot or any other educational, let's say, system providing sample legal documents or interactive legal knowledge. This is all this strategy is going to be implemented once we see whether there is a demand for that. And also another way how we could monetize maybe the service is that once we decide to gather data, it's not that this is going to influence in any way the user, but like gathering big data, then it might be useful to see how people interact with the bot, what problems do they have in terms of the very interactions and also in terms of their legal problems. So maybe companies would be interested in this sort of knowledge from us. Well, we are also thinking about creating or using one of the crowdfunding platforms. This is something that's probably going to be done like in the very near future, maybe in a month, and we'll see how much money we can get from that. And at the same time, we are very conscious about the fact that more ways of monetization and more ways of getting money will unfold while the bot is getting better and we have more feedback, so maybe the strategy will change. And we would really like to encourage you to give us any feedback you have or any ideas that you have about the use of the service so far, except for the social utility that we think is there. Yeah, thank you.
Great, now just winding up the presentation a bit, finally I would like to present our new logo, which was developed by a friend of ours, so thanks a lot to Katka for that. Also, let me thank Clerks Room Direct for sponsoring today's event. It would not have been possible without them, so thank you for making this possible today. And maybe I'd just like to say a few words going forward. I mean, we're a bunch of students. We got together, we did a little project, we had an idea, we started implementing it. It worked to a certain extent. We got a lot of feedback, we got a lot of interest. We think that we might be onto something here, but we're still a bunch of students. So we're really looking for anybody's guidance, support, help, feedback, whatever we can get. It's a little bit difficult sometimes in Cambridge actually to get exactly this kind of feedback. So we'd really be happy to anybody who would like to support us in any way or criticize us, because we're very happy to learn from our mistakes. So thanks a lot to all of you for coming. I hope we could present this in a decent fashion, and if any of you have any questions, we'd be very happy to answer them now. So thanks a lot for coming. Thank you. So are there any questions? Yes?
I'm afraid I've got lots of questions.
Yeah.
Is that okay? First of all, I'm an academic and a newspaper columnist, and I was very interested in that when I originally heard about the project, and I think it's very interesting. So the things I've got, the questions I've got are intended to be helpful.
Right.
They're not critical in that sense, but I'm puzzled about some things. Starting from the top, are you wise to use AI in your pitch, artificial intelligence?
We don't. Yeah, I think it's a good question, because we don't usually use it in our pitch.
No.
The problem is that when it is presented by the media, they very often emphasize this fact a lot. In the beginning, we weren't entirely clear on whether or not we should use it, and then at some point we decided not to anymore. Yeah. Simply because it is not really an artificial intelligence system. Unfortunately, a lot of journalists have been reporting about us have not noticed that, which is why we put a blog post up actually last week saying, we're not really artificially intelligent, we don't use machine learning, and there's been a lot of misinformation about that. And that's a very
and
valid
I
point.
sympathise with you because most journalists are clueless. I
Yeah.
speak with the thief on this matter. But I mean, it is an issue because you could be, the perception that might be shaped of you might be that actually you're making claims that you can't sustain. And obviously you don't make them, but I think you have to be very alert to that, I would say. The other thing is that I think you have a problem with the domain name. Because I googled, I typed LawBot.com and I had something into my browser and I got all kinds of stuff, which is nothing to do with you, and it's to do with people running this kind of stuff oriented in more or less unscrupulous ways at companies and other things. So if you're going to take, I would suggest that if you're going to take this where you want to take it, then you have to pay attention to how you can get some kind of domain name which gives you a reasonable chance of being on the front page of a Google search. I mean, this is not a showstopper at the moment, but one day it might be. Third question, I can understand your concern about liability. Is it a real problem, do you think?
I don't think it's a...
Just the kind. I mean, whenever you talk to lawyers, they talk about liability,
Yeah.
always.
Of course. So, I mean, having done this in Cambridge for the past 4 weeks, and especially being law students, all of us, this has been an issue that's come up, which has led to us really thinking about it very deeply and getting as much up as we can. I don't think it's going to be a major problem, and the feedback we've gotten so far from lawyers has been, check it, but it's be reasonable.
I mean, you're pretty emphatic in the front page saying that we're not offering legal advice.
Yeah,
or something.
exactly.
Okay. On the funding side, first of all, about the finances. I mean, I'm amazed at how far you got with so little money. I mean, this is a town. I've started several technology companies in my time here, and at the moment, the going rate for a software engineer, a good software engineer in Cambridge, is £140,000 a year. Okay, so you've done wonderful things with 300 quid. In terms of what you need the money for, my hunch is that you don't need, I mean, forgive me, I may be wrong, but I don't think you need money for technology. What you really need is money for a couple of really good software developers, probably. And they're not cheap, but that's what you need it for. And of course you need some stuff about marketing and or some way of getting your message out in a way that you can kind of control. But in terms of the sort of getting a sustainable financial model, I'm not talking about a business model, I'm talking about something that gets you to sustainability, because you seem to me to be a pro bono enterprise in spirit. Then so you need some kind of sustainable model. And the thing you have to watch there, for example, in targeted advertising, in particular, is that you have to strike a very delicate balance, because if people suspect that in some way you are some sort of covert route into directing people towards the targeted advertising, then you're in trouble, I think. And there's there's a long history of that in this country with financial advisors, because all these folks, purport to give you free advice, and in fact, what they're actually directing you towards are products on which they get a commission, and there's a kind of widespread suspicion of that anyway, and you've got to be careful that you don't ever get caught by that. The other thing is that there's some amazingly successful uses of the internet now, which are having very disruptive impacts on very established industries. A good example is Nutmeg. Do you know about Nutmeg? Nutmeg.com. Well, Nutmeg.com is essentially an AI-powered fund management service for small investors. Okay, and it came from nowhere, and it started more. I'm sure it didn't start as a pro bono venture, but it started small, and it has become amazingly successful, and is worth an example of what can be done with this stuff. Although they're of course in the commercial sphere, But in terms of funding, given that you will need software developers, and they're not cheap, my hunch is that you should think about some foundations. So and in particular, I think you should think about the Omidar Foundation, which is the fund set up by Pierre Omidar, the founder of eBay, because they are very interested in this kind of stuff, and they have a very efficient and rather attractive process for vetting funding bids and so on. They view it as if they were sort of venture capitalists with a halo. Okay, in the sense that they're looking for, they treat you as if you were looking for funding for a company. And in the end, you have to have a sustainable business plan and the rest of it. But they're very quick, they're very efficient, they're very honest. And my hunch is they might like this. So it's worth a try. There's a local guy we know somewhere around here.
I'd be very happy to chat.
But there may be others as well, because the point about a lot of the funding for good stuff with technology is that there are an awful lot of rich people around who've made a lot of money out of technology. There are probably 150 individuals in Cambridge who have net worths of £15 million upwards, some of them in the billions, and they have they're very good at first of all mentoring and providing support, and they're also very good at first stage funding for things they like. There are a lot of them. They're good for advice. They're very savvy and they're very favourable to this kind of thing. So you're in a good place from that point of view, I think. You just have to exploit it.
Right.
And after that, I'll shut up.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Yes?
Can I just pick up on the Google ranking thing? A couple of weeks ago, if you Googled for LawBot, you were on the third or fourth page or something.
Yeah.
Nobody goes that far. It's a bit higher now. But of course, people don't Google for the word LawBot. They ask Google questions.
Yeah.
Was I really a victim here? And those are the people you want to get in a search.
Right. I mean, we've been-
The trouble with that is that if you want to ensure that you score on things like legal advice, people searching, if they Google for legal advice, that somebody is paying $50 a click for that, and you won't get there.
No.
You know, so you have to think of good media coverage helps sometimes.
I mean, maybe just one thing I can comment on the Google issue is that, I mean, it's a little bit difficult to improve your page rank simply without, just to do anything about it really. We got on the first page for some time. I believe we were on there until very recently, simply through getting good links from other sites, because that's, I guess, how page rank ranks the sites, right? But at the same time, obviously, it's going to be, there's a problem with the other lawbot.co
Yeah.
out there,
Yeah.
which does contractual license agreements checks.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's definitely a valid issue. Any other questions? Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot for coming again. I'd invite all of you to join us for some wine, and we'd be very happy to just chat a little bit informally. So, thanks a lot again for coming.